this afternoon. And my name is Severin Morin. We had a wonderful evening last night. And I want to take this moment to thank the management of CKNW for putting that special 3-hour program together. And Alma told me, thank you. And she told me that if I continue with what I've normally done over the years, and I had the opportunity, and kind of, Red Robinson said, make sure it's an up-tempo thing. But I must tell you, some years back when Bill Kennedy passed away, and good Frank Marshall, I also did a bit of an eulogy at the time, and of course I cried. And on the 25th anniversary of Jack's program, CBC covered at that time, I cried then. And I guess that's my French background or Native Indian background, you can call it whatever it is. Folks, thank you very, very much. And particularly, I wanted to have a nice warm welcome to Jack's family, his wife Alma, the girls and Dean, and all the family that are here. And there's still my left over here. Let's give them a nice hand. Fortunately, last night, everything was said about, that could have been said about anything about Jack was said last night. So it would really be redundant if I was trying to say about Jack, the great years that he and I had together. And here I go. But seriously, my heart is with Jack and his family. I want to ask Lorne to come up and talk about the family. Lorne Cullen, please.
Thank you all for coming, and thank the Shrine organization and Severin Morin for the amount of work that they've put into this. Everybody knows Jack's career from the radio on, so I'm going to go into how he got there. Born in 1922, and this is just right after the war. So he comes into the world that has silent movies, gramophone, home entertainment. Mother played the piano by ear badly. Father played the mouth organ and the Jew's harp. If you ever know what a Jew's harp is, you don't want to know. Percussion, strictly. And from there, he goes on to, born here in Vancouver. Mother and father were Irish-Canadian on the father's side and Swedish-Canadian on the mother's side. I'm going to stumble through this a little because this doesn't happen every day, so bear with me. So from there, Jack's kind of a normal kid, except he doesn't play all those games like softball, baseball, and so on. He's more into building model airplanes from the First World War, something he shared with Mel Torme, who was a big fan of that too, and Bob Smith. And he was big on bicycles and anything that rolled or moved. Today he probably would have been a rollerblader or a snowboarder or something like that. He was an extreme kind of guy as a kid. Along about 5 or 6 years of age, sound is added, and all of the early movies come in with a great deal of musicals. So Jack is exposed to early movie musicals very young in his life, 5, 6, 7 years old, and this is the big thing in the world right now. We've got sound movies, wow. And they're musical, so this had a great effect on his future career, as it would turn out. Along about 12 years of age, he goes down to the old family home, grandparents, on the 500 block East 7th Avenue. Now this is one of those great big old homes that had about 3 stories, and an enclosed circular staircase, spooky as hell. Scared me. But Jack goes down and he climbs the circular staircase, and the kids were all gone by this time, and all the rooms are empty at the top, and he finds an old phonograph. One of those ones like his master's voice with a little dog with a big horn, and it isn't working. He takes it home and he plays with it, and he gets it working. The start of his record collection. Then he gets the thing on records, and of course the movie musicals. He was big on movie musicals. Dick Powell was like, was there anybody else in the world except Dick Powell? As we're 6.5, 7.5 years younger as brothers. So we're brainwashed, and we don't know if there's anybody else in the world except Dick Powell. And that went on. Now, Jack did the lower lip thing. He had mannerisms of Big Paul, and he goes on from there. Charles Dickens Elementary School, graduates from there and goes to King Edward High School, where he meets some people that help him a little in his future career. First of all, he's using his records to put on the school dances and MC them a little bit. And with 2 or 3 of his buddies, they put on little dances outside with little waybills, things that said, "We hope you like our music and we hope it doesn't make you too sick." Wow. Yeah. Did anybody come? The other thing that happens at King Ed is he meets Bob Smith, who was at King Ed at the same time, and he credits Bob Smith with being the person that realigned his musical thinking into better music, and that was a big thing. The war intervenes around about now, and he joins the Navy and becomes a wireless telegraphist. And he had a good fist. Now, in wireless telegraphy, you have a fist and being able to send out the dots and dashes really well. And because he had a good fist, his first 2 years in the Navy, he's at Halifax and he's on shore patrol. He's on a shore base, rather. This is a good break because those years of the North Atlantic convoys were brutal. The Germans were knocking off a lot of ships. So by the time he starts the convoys duty 2 years later, that's pretty well cleaned up. Now, another great break is on his convoy duties, they take him into Londonderry, Ireland, Northern Ireland that would be, and voila, opens up a whole new era for collecting records. He's got English parlophones and H's Master's Voice and all these records that were never printed by outstanding artists, British and American, that were never printed in Canada. So about this time I'm in high school and I have his record collection all through my high school years. His collection is mine because he's away. But about every 6 months or 8 months, a huge crate would arrive at the door and would have armed forces recordings, V-discs, all of this stuff. And I had the job of listing it, filing it, putting it into the record collection and so forth. Okay, he comes home from the Navy and briefly, Spratshaw, I believe, a little bit of broadcasting help there. First job is in Port Alberni. In Port Alberni is his first DJ job. Oh, I should go back a little bit. At home, we have a gable in the house that looks east. And this gable is the room in which he stored all his records. And he took a table, and he cut a piece out of the table, and he made a switchboard. And this is before we even went in the Navy. And he had a 33 1/3 turntable here, and a 78 RPM turntable here. And he did the disc jockey thing without anything going out over the air or anything like that. But he would pretend he was a disc jockey. When he comes back from the Navy, he now knows a lot about electronics, and he gets an oscillator. An oscillator allows you to broadcast. So he would go on the air, and he would be Glendale, California, and I can't remember the letters, and he would be illegally broadcasting. And to the kids in the neighborhood, if they were having a birthday, he'd say, "Oh, tune in to 760 on your dial," and he would turn the oscillator, and he would put through a dedication to the kid on his birthday. And rules for Jack were something that other people followed. If you knew Jack, you know that rules, what are rules? I mean, why do we drive on the right-hand side of the road? And why did he drive at all, really? Well, you heard about that. 1 week in Ocala cleared that up a little bit. So one night they got in the car and I operated the thing, and they got as far as Alma Road picking up this broadcasting unit that he had. And we were told, it was like a war movie, like the Gestapo was looking for the French resistance radio. We were told, look out for the radio direction car. You know? It was kind of funny. And he was a great brother. We had a lot of fun, and he, because there was such a gap in the ages, we weren't a threat. We're a threat to each other, two younger brothers. And on those long rainy afternoons and evenings in Vancouver, he would play records and we would have to guess who was going to sing it, who was going to play it, and so forth. And we had a lot of fun. And And the other thing was Pulp Fiction magazines. He was big on, in his early years, on Pulp Fiction magazines, which were their pocketbook of the day. Favorite being Doc Savage, and of course James Battle Aces and Bill Barnes and Air Adventures. He never read The Shadow, which was surprising considering what went on later in his career. Of course, we all laid around like all of us did at night and listened to I Love a Mystery, Mike, Doc and Jack, all the different radio shows. And of course, he remembered that, and when they came up and were available to him later on, then all of you started to hear them over again 50 years later. So it was a big thing. From King Ed, as I say, he went to Port Alberni. So I was there briefly, and I don't know whether the smell drove him away, if you've ever been to Port Alberni, a logging town or pulp mill. So he comes back to Vancouver, and he's still looking for a job. So he goes down to CKMO, and at that time, radio in Vancouver pretty well ended at 12 o'clock at night. There wasn't anything through from 12 to 6. So he went to CKMO, and he said, look, I'll operate the studio alone. I'll supply all my own records. You don't have to pay me. In the daylight, I will go out and sell advertising for that program, and you will pay me the commission for the sale of the advertising. And that's the way he started the Pacific Patrol. And that was the start of, and that was sort of the start of his career really in radio broadcasting here. And that was, and the party thing started right even then. I mean, people were dropping in, wow, all the times of night and so on. And of course on from there and there, on and on and on. He married shortly around that time. First wife, Joy, who was also in the business and wrote continuity for him and appeared on some of his shows, and they did a show together. And that brought along the two daughters, Kelly and Colleen, shortly after. And of course, when I say of course in the industry, I guess maybe it's normal, but that eventually broke up, and he was very fortunate to land another good girl in Alma, and she gave him the stability and the home base that he really needed, because with Jack it was the music and the job, and everything else was forget it. So his career, as you hear this, all started at about 12 years of age, and maybe even before that in his thinking. And not many people take their career from 12 right straight through. Now you're going to hear people from here, and I apologize to anybody that I haven't mentioned. There's just so many, and there's so many things happened. His buddies from the war years, Bob Smith, who came, as I mentioned, from the school, and Bob Hughes, of course, a longtime friend in the early years. And I'm only speaking of the early years. There's lots of people here that know all about the later years, and it's all been documented. I won't go into that. So the end was a little difficult. I'll just mention that briefly, that he lost the job, left him really depressed, because that was all he'd ever done all his life, and it wasn't there anymore. And it just ate on him, and he gradually went down. He had lots of support at home, and the people at the various hospitals and some were good. But he just sort of drifted down and down and down and down. And the booze didn't help. Then it was game over. So I'll pass on to our next speaker. Sev, you'll do that? Thank
you. Before I call on Bill Hughes, just say some words, and many words I'm sure. And the bus is leaving in the morning. Bill, is that still leaving in the morning? Many of you have a copy of the extremely fine program that was put together, and our good friend, longtime friend and colleague, Jack Lee, put this together within 24 hours. We were up in Alma's house yesterday, and the script and the pictures, oops-a-daisy, my handsome French, remember? Anyway, Jack, thank you very much, and the folks you work with. Jack does a great job in PR. He's done it for, Jack and I work together in politics and a few other things. Do you know the word race and politics? Just thought I'd mention it. Anyway, Jack, thank you very, very much. any of you had the opportunity, or not the opportunity, to listen to the 3 hours with John McComb last night, one of the things that came up, and they said, well, why was Jack such a good broadcaster? Why did he have all this great success? Because really he did not have Al Roosh and many other people told him, you have a lousy voice for broadcasting. But the thing is, there's a friend of ours here, a good friend of Jack's, and to show you it can happen in the disc jockey business, it can also happen in sports. So John McGeechee, see, you didn't have to, you weren't along that way. Another part of, one of the things that came up last night, Jack helped Michael Bublé get started, and the ukulele band folks from Langley, he was really, really good at that. And I'm just going to digress in one sense, the fact the NW team and the family of those folks have always encouraged people, Tony Antonius can vouch for this, but a long-time friend of ours, and long gone, unfortunately, Al Davidson, this young lady who came from a school in Westminster, and he says, you know, sweetheart, if you look after yourself, you might be a broadcaster one day. And through Al Davidson, Val Peary's with us, and she's done an incredible job. Val? It also has to be the people that motivate the entrepreneurial instincts that we want in this province, and the Griffiths family are certainly the epitome of that, and we're so thrilled to have Mrs. Griffiths here today. And before I turn over to Bill, I just want, they alluded to this earlier, but also last night, Jack was the Pex boy. I think John Mickey of the Vancouver's son and Joe Leary brought this up. But Jack was not, as Lorne said earlier, you didn't control Lorne. But if you were to look at Rod Gunn and Ted Smith and Bill Hughes, you'll see why they have gray hair and maybe not too much hair. Anyway, thanks fellows for backing a great guy. I see George Garrett there. George was a good colleague of Jack's, and thank you, all of you. I don't want to go through the whole litany of everyone that's here tonight, but I'm going to turn over now to Bill, who probably knows more about Jack than you ever want to know.
Alma and Jack Cullen's family. It's a great honor for me to be asked to say a few words, and I'm just going to say a few because we're talking about a legend, and it's not easy to talk about a legend because I made a note. What is a legend? Legend is somebody on the leading edge. Somebody who trailblazes. And that was Jack Cullen. He was a trailblazer. There were times when he trailblazed too much, and I thought he was going to put the forest on fire. But he did things back in the 50s and 60s and the 70s. It was kind of like us driving a school bus. We were up front, the suits, he called us. And we were driving this rickety bus, and all hell was breaking loose behind us. And we knew who was leading it, with Jack Webster, Jack Wasserman, and Jack Cullen. I mean, steering was hard enough, but with those three guys behind you, and the rest of the staff just watching and I think copying what he did. And Lorne, I think you said it all, because Jack didn't like to be hamstrung by regulations and rules. And he wanted to see how far he could go and push these rules back a little bit and push the regulations, and he just was hamstrung by the authority, and we didn't know what to do about it. So we would have him in and talk with him, and he'd say, "Oh, gee, that was stupid of me," and da-da-da-da. But we knew perfectly well that as soon as he got out of the office, he went back to the studio and the same old thing happened. But I can remember the commission in Ottawa wanting to know where those armed forces radio things came from. I don't know, but I think Jack stole them. But that's a story for another day. Yesterday, last night was 3 hours of absolute greatness, because many people that Jack's path crossed, and it was just a magnificent show. And I'm sorry if you missed it, because it was just CKNW and the rules and Jack Cullen, the legend. And we're going to miss him, Babe. But he was like Babe Ruth. He was like Lou Gehrig. He was like so many leaders and trailblazers. He was a legend in his own time. And it's a pleasure for me to be here and be asked to talk about Jack Cullen. Friends, thank you very much.
Maybe I'd suggest the present management of NW, the Chorus Network. I think he's still got a few, as Jack would say, his vocal cords are still pretty good. Always done a great job, and a great attribute to the art industry in Canada and British Columbia. Before I call on the next good-looking guy, John Ashbridge. Now, this is another story, but before I do that, I do make little notes about standing there, and my notes are upside. Oftentimes when they were on McBride Boulevard, Jack would, the studio was across the parking lot, and Jack would be maybe coming in or going out, but you can always know that he'd be monitored, because Brian Forrest would be there and say, Jack just walked into the studio and all, and I think he would always be doing all night. But Brian, thank you for your support of Jackie. Had a great respect for you, and you know that, and thank you very much, Brian. And also say in the montage of the NW family, if you want to have a gala evening, there's only one person who can put those words together. And nice to see Joy here today. Joy, nice to see you. 2 mornings ago, Rafe Mayer made a few wonderful comments about Jack. They didn't work together, didn't know each other that well. Am I correct, Rafe? I think not that. Anyway, but he had a lot of respect for Jack. Jack did for Rafe. And, you know, Rafe, I have to tell you, baseball wasn't something that Jack was really that great on, which I know you are. And also, fishing isn't something that he was that great about. But anyway, he respected your professionalism and everything that went with it. So, Rafe, thank you very much. And I'm going through this, and of course, obviously everybody, but you know, in the marketing end of everything, the special promotions marketing people of a station like CKNW, and I can relate more to the McBride era with Hal and Vern Farrello and people like that, and you know, Hughes, as we mentioned earlier. But John Pluel ran a real ship when it came to promotions. I don't know, John, whether you really ever got Jack to follow the line that you wanted. He's shaking his head down there, so I think I would concur with that. And Mrs. Griffith said yes, too. the years, I've had an opportunity to work with these people, know them in my political life, and it's a lovely, lovely gesture for Senator and Mrs. Lawson to come out from Ottawa today. Now I'm turning it over to the dulcet tones of John. Over to the dulcet tones of John Ashbridge, and you're going to have your 7:30 news broadcast whether you want it or not.
Jack would be very disappointed that this is the strongest beverage that is being served in the room today, although I have spotted coffee with it.
Remember me from another time?
In the room today, although I have spotted coffee at the back. What a wonderful evening we had last night, sitting around the microphone, interrupting each other for 3 hours telling old war stories about Jack. And I have been asked to get in a plug on behalf of the Orphans Fund that should you wish a recorded copy of last night's tribute program, they are available, or will be shortly, by contacting CKNW. All proceeds from the sale of those cassettes will go to the CKNW Orphans Fund. Again, a fine gesture on behalf of somebody who was very near and very dear to us. To Alma, to the family, and I know some of you have come from a long way away, to those of us who worked with him, to those of us who knew him, to those of us who simply listened to him and were entertained by Jack over the decades, what a wonderful tribute it is if you look around this room and see not only the number of people, but the stature and the cross-section of society who are here today to pay their respects to somebody who was a part of our lives for so long. And you should all be congratulated for that. Thank you. I remember Jack as a man of some contradictions in that he was always the first to offer you both something warm and cold at the same time. Regardless of the hour of day or night, whenever you saw him, there was always a warm smile, and usually a cold beverage would follow shortly thereafter, regardless of the hour of day or night. Jack, as you may or may not know, was also a man who had some ability when it came to style, when it came to trendsetting, when it came to interior decorating. How many of us who have visited his studio will ever forget the first thing we saw when we walked in the door was the plastic urinal stuck on the end of the piano? I mean, that was something to take your breath away. Jack was also a great teacher. He taught me many, many things about this industry. But one of the things that has stuck with me over the years, and it's something which I learned only from Jack, and I've never forgotten it, was how to edit audio tape with a stapler. It's something which I have never practiced, but he is one of the very few who mastered that. Jack, you were a good friend. You will be a part of our lives for a long, long time. And as I said last night during our broadcast, what a wonderful thing it is to have so many people come out and say so many wonderful things about a truly wonderful guy. How unfortunate it is that it takes an occasion such as this to bring us all together. And I think we should remember that and stay in closer touch with each other. Those who are so much a part of our lives, let's not wait until the last minute or even the minute after the last minute to show our appreciation of the friends that we have around us. Thank you.
The tape that John referred to, he just told me off the side there that any portion that I'm involved, they can do a great editing job, so you won't have to listen to me, so I just thought I'd tell you that. Red Robinson's going to have a couple of words now, more than a couple, I hope. But anyway, and John alluded to this, that the memory of getting together when we let it go too long shouldn't happen. And Red has put together the RPM group of people, the senior broadcasters of this whole